Today we're going to take a look at this. This is the Insta360 One RS with the 1-inch 360 edition lens. Let's dive in. So what we're going to do today is basically go over kind of a mini review as well as a tutorial on the best settings for this camera. Now, Insta360 did provide this camera for the purposes of this tutorial/review, but they have no ability to see the video before you're all seeing it, and they had no input on what I'm about to say. I want to start by talking about the modularity of this camera. If you've been following our channel for quite some time, you'll know I'm a fan of small action cameras. I really like their capabilities, I find them fun and intriguing, and I think it's pretty cool to be able to put a super tiny camera in your pocket that's very durable and also has extra cool features. What's unique about this one is Insta360 is actually targeting professionals with this camera and less of the action market. And I can tell you right off the bat that that is clear throughout every part of this camera. First of all, we build it a little bit differently than the other cameras. It is based on the RS platform, so we start with that RS brain, we can attach the battery to that, and then we slide this little bracket over it, clip the lens on, and that builds the completed camera. Now this camera can then be screwed onto a selfie stick or a tripod or held in the hand, however you want to create super cool images and video. Now there are a lot of different advantages to a 360 camera, from being able to reframe things after you shoot it, to being able to get really good stabilization, to even being able to use the invisible selfie stick mode where the stick the camera is mounted to disappears entirely. Let's start by discussing the best settings for this camera, and then we'll get into my thoughts and opinions on the image quality and how this thing works. There's two main photo modes of operation, HDR photo and normal photo. I'm gonna make it super simple. If you're shooting a static subject, say you're using this for real estate interiors, hint, it's really good for that kind of thing, I'm gonna recommend that you put this camera on HDR photo, as that's gonna give you a much better end result. Problem is, HDR photo works by taking a series of images and stitching them together into one final shot. So if your subject or you are moving, you're gonna run into issues with HDR, and that would be an instance where we're gonna use normal photo. If we are gonna use HDR photo, there are a few settings I recommend. First, I recommend putting the camera on what's called Pure Shot. Pure Shot uses Insta360's AI algorithm to apply automatic adjustments to the photo. But it also shoots a RAW version of the photo. And those of you who may have shot photos professionally, you'll know that RAW is the purest, best quality form of our images. And it allows us to get all the detail out that this camera has to offer. So Pure Shot not only gives you that option for that more advanced AI processing, you also get the original RAW. Additionally, I'm gonna recommend that you put the AEB, which is auto exposure bracketing, on 9. That's gonna tell the camera to take 9 separate exposures and stitch those into one. Those of you who don't know too much about photography, that basically just means take the most amount of pictures to get us the best quality end result. Additionally, I'm gonna set my EV plus minus to plus or minus 1 full stop. That's gonna ensure that each of those 9 pictures is 1 stop brighter or darker than the previous one. And again, that's gonna ensure that we get the most dynamic range and the best lit final photo. Lastly, we have the option to set our WB or white balance. White balance is a measure of color temperature, or what color the lights are that we're shooting our scene under. Because I've set the white balance of the camera you're seeing this video on right now to the proper white balance of this light, I look properly lit. However, if this light was maybe a little greener and I didn't compensate for it, I might look a little too green or a little too magenta or a little too blue, so on and so forth. If you know the white balance of the lights you're gonna shoot under, go ahead and set the white balance manually to that specific Kelvin temperature. However, remember that because we're shooting RAW, we'll be able to change the white balance after the fact without losing any quality in our photos. I've also found that the auto white balance mode works exceptionally well in this camera, and Insta360 did a great job of balancing it in a number of different lighting situations. The only thing really to watch out for here is mixed light. If you have a situation, say you're shooting an interior of a home and you've got daylight streaming in the windows, and then maybe you have like old-fashioned tungsten lights inside the building, you're gonna have a mixture of warm light and white light. And in those situations, it might be best to actually turn off the interior lights in the home and let the home be lit purely by the daylight outside. This is very situational though, and I would recommend playing with it. Just review your photo after you take it, and if you see a mix of blue light and warm light and it's kind of not looking too good, just remember that mixed light is a really hard thing for a camera to deal with. So that's gonna be your best case scenario. Now, if you or your subject is moving, then I would recommend the normal photo mode. Now, inside of the normal photo mode, again, we have a few options. First thing is I'm gonna recommend again using PureShot. That's gonna give us that raw quality, but it's also gonna give us a version that has the Insta360 AI adjustments applied to it. I'm also gonna recommend full auto here. I actually played with this camera a number of different ways inside my house and a couple other homes, and I really couldn't beat auto with my own manual settings. And that's awesome, because if you're buying a camera like this for, say, real estate photography or something like that, you're gonna be able to not have to know a ton about photography, and this camera on full auto is gonna give you really good results. The only adjustment that I will give to that is notice that there is an EV compensation setting on this camera. And what that EV compensation is gonna do is it's gonna allow you to override what the camera thinks is correct and intentionally brighten or darken things a little bit more. So I think the auto mode in conjunction with a little bit of EV override, right? Maybe you look at the phone that you're using to look at the image, and you think, oh, it's a little too bright, a little too dark. That EV compensation is gonna help. Now I bring up my phone here, and that's important. Because this is a 360 camera, you don't want to be in the shot, right? This captures everything. It captures a sphere around the camera. And so oftentimes what you'll do is set this camera up on a tripod or a selfie stick or something in the home or wherever you're shooting, and then you'll get your phone out, use the app to control it, and you'll go hide in the next room. That way you can capture super clear images without you being somewhere in the picture. And you all, that kind of brings me to the end of the photo settings. Overall, I'm highly impressed. I've never used a 360 spherical camera that has had nearly as good of image quality as this. The lenses are super sharp and crisp, and with that PureShot AI being applied to the images, really right out of the camera, those images looked good and were ready for prime time. It's pretty cool. Additionally, the dynamic range of this camera, especially when using HDR mode, is amazing. I was able to render really good details both outside the homes and inside the homes that I was photographing, which is a testament to the ability for this camera to handle very bright and very dark things in the same scene. Okay, let's talk about video modes. Now, video on a 360 camera, really the true advantage that I see is the invisible selfie stick mode and the ability to reframe things. If you're interested in what's possible, check out the video about this camera on the Insta360 homepage. It really showcases some of the amazing video things you can do with a camera like this in the right situation. As for settings, it's super simple. For color mode, I'm gonna use standard. There is a log color profile, but it's not truly log. It's almost just a flat mode. You're not gonna get really any enhancement, any logarithmic capture like you would on another camera that shoots a true log. So standard is gonna work totally fine. Additionally, I'm gonna recommend one of two resolution and frame rate options. I'd say 90% of the time, I think the 6K at 30 frames per second is gonna be your best choice. If, however, you wanna do slow motion, there is a 3K at 50 frames per second option. That's gonna allow you to slow your footage down to 50% speed and still have smooth looking video. However, 3K is pretty low resolution for a spherical capture. So it's kinda gonna limit your reframing options, whereas that 6K is gonna give you much more headroom for framing your footage however you see fit. Again, here for video, I'm actually gonna recommend the automatic mode. The only caveat is that I'm gonna highly recommend setting your white balance manually. I really take an issue with auto white balance in video purely because as you move from room to room or scene to scene, you're actually gonna watch the colors in the room change as the camera tries to compensate for the varied colors of light. My recommendation instead is to do a walkthrough of the home. If you're shooting a home or go outside, look at your phone and try to get the white balance set to something that looks moderately good throughout the entire clip. My opinion is that a moderately good white balance that stays consistent throughout wherever you're going and whatever you're showing looks more professional than colors that shift throughout the video clip. And this might take a couple tries, but again, that phone app makes it exceptionally easy to just drag the white balance slider and find the perfect setting for your situation. And again, I'm just gonna say the video out of this camera just looks good. There's obviously the weird distortion when you get to the edge of the lenses. Whenever you have a 180-degree field of view lens meeting another 180-degree field of view lens on the edges of both, there's gonna be some weird distortion, chromatic aberration, loss of sharpness, all that kind of stuff. But so long as you keep the lens, either the front lens or the rear lens, pointed directly at whatever the subject is, the gap zone, you know, where it's merging the two lenses, is gonna be off where you don't really care anyway, and you're gonna get a really good result. So what are my conclusions? Well, I can say this: if you're a real estate photographer or a real estate videographer and you're looking for an exceptional camera to use when you do home walkthroughs and to showcase the houses you're selling, this thing's pretty awesome, especially because, again, those auto modes work so well. Additionally, if you're a professional videographer looking for a camera that can really add some uniqueness to your clips, again, check out Insta360's homepage to kind of see their sizzle reel, so to speak, of all the cool things this camera can do. This can be an awesome add-on for that as well. If you all like this video, definitely hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with future videos. We make videos every single week on photography, video, all kinds of related industries in that world. If you did like this video, I would really appreciate you hitting that like button. And lastly, leave a comment down below if you have any questions or help somebody out. Maybe scroll through the comments if you own one of these, provide a little bit of insight, and let us know what you've learned. Thanks everybody, and I'll catch you in the next one.